Welcome to our new home on Malta. I got a lot of questions. There were actually over 60 questions, so I had to pick a few of those, and a lot of the questions were actually of a very similar nature, more or less about the same thing, so I kind of put them together. And let's see, vinyl and re-releases, a lot of questions about that. Well, I got back the back catalog for all Therion releases up till 2007 this year. So I'm planning a lot of re-releases on CD of the most popular albums. But when it comes to vinyl, we're not only gonna re-release all of them, we are also going to release for the first time ever some vinyls, like Crowning of Atlantis, for instance, that was never released on vinyl. We also plan to release the Beauty in Black EP as a maxi single on vinyl for the first time. So for vinyl lovers, it's gonna be interesting this year. And let's see, tons of questions about booze, mead, wine, and so on. I don't have access to honey in the same way here as I did in Sweden. Honey on Malta is very expensive, so I need to solve that. Maybe I can buy from Italy and start making mead again, because truth be told, I really miss mead myself. So yeah, sometime in the future I'm gonna continue with the mead, and if we do some Therion wine or something, or beer, who knows, maybe, but mead is the priority. Beloved Antichrist on stage. There's been a lot of questions about that, and it's not so easy to just stage a rock musical, because it's so much more work to stage a music theater than to just do a live concert. But we're working on it, and there has been some delays due to the Corona chaos, and now it's crashing a little bit with the new Therion album, which of course has priority. But we're still working on it, and it will be staged at one point for sure, and it seems like it will be staged in Mexico for the first time. And let's see, leftovers, a lot of questions about leftovers. Well, we're writing a lot of material. I would say that over the years, we don't have that many really good songs that are leftovers. There are a couple that are okay. And I've been thinking for a couple of years to do some sort of leftover compilation. And now with the new record, we are writing an insane amount of material. So I think after the new record, it's gonna be the right time to do some sort of leftover release. And Luciferian Light Orchestra, my 70s side project band. I have, I think, 7 songs or something written for the next album. The problem is time, because Therion obviously is my priority. And once I'm off Therion, I would like to have a little bit of time off as well. But I will definitely make one more record for sure. I need to write a couple of more songs and find the time for it. So there will be a second Luciferian album for sure at some point. And then there are questions about the new record, obviously. The title will be Leviathan, and style-wise, for the first time ever in the history of the band, we're actually trying to give the fans what they want. I would say Therion has been a journey of exploring up till now. But after Beloved Antichrist, I felt a big emptiness inside, because it was like, now I've done everything that I wanted to do, everything I was dreaming of. There's nothing left to do. And then I realized, wait, there's one thing left to do. Actually trying to make like a classic Therion album, trying to give the fans what they want. Of course, giving the fans what they want is not so easy because everybody wants different things. But at least trying to please the majority of the fans, like listening to the most popular songs and see what is it that we think people are liking with these songs, and try to make a record which is full of hit songs, you know. So it will be very catchy, very strong melodies, and yeah, very, very good. And somehow I see Therion now, the second half, you know, after being explorers, I don't have a problem of seeing myself as an entertainer, because I did everything I wanted, and I've been extremely lucky to have been able to support myself, and quite well so, on doing whatever I wanted all these years. So it feels fair to, at least for a while, make some sort of payback, giving fans what they want. I'm sure we're gonna do some crazy, unpredictable album in the future again, but right now we want to do this. And let's see, about the moving to Malta. Well, I don't want to get into political stuff and so on, but there's been a lot of questions about it. And well, I picked Malta because it's warm and nice. It's European Union, so it's just a formality moving here. It's English speaking, so when you get papers from authorities and so on, you don't need a translator. And obviously taxes are pretty beneficial as well. It's a low tax country. At the same time, you have one of the best Medicares in Europe, so you get a lot for your taxes. It has very, very low criminality, the lowest in Europe. Coming from Sweden, where there's a lot of explosions and shootings and very tough organized criminality all the time, it's actually a relief to be in a country where people don't need to lock the cars and feel safe in the streets. It's also a very friendly environment here. It's very conservative in a way, but open-minded in another way. So it seems like they preserve what is good, but they're not closed-minded for the future. So for instance, we have way faster internet here than we had in Sweden, and cheaper actually. And we have better phone coverage, but that maybe has something to do with that we lived in a forest in Sweden, I don't know. Well, in general, it's just a very good country, and I'm very inspired being here also. It has a lot of history. We have pretty much walking distance to the oldest freestanding building on the planet. And you have the history of the knights. You had Malta has been ruled by Italy, the French, Arabs. You know, it has been a lot of big turns in the history of the country. I don't know, it's just a very interesting place to live in. And I hope we will be here for good, but at least we're gonna be here for a very long time. And as a fun thing, can you believe it? We actually drove here with our stuff ourselves. Not once, but twice. We packed a van with a huge trailer with most of our stuff that we didn't want to sell, because when I sold my house in Sweden, the Villa Adelruna, we also left a lot of furniture with it. But with the stuff that we wanted to bring, we filled the van and the trailer 2 times and drove all the way from Sweden over Europe, over the entire Italy, and down over Sicily, and took the ferry to Malta. So it's a 3-day drive each direction. So nobody should blame me for being lazy. And one of the reasons for that was because I have 24 guitars, and I simply didn't trust any company on the planet to transport my treasure of studio equipment, guitars and stuff like that. Right, then we have questions about the music industry, and it has changed quite radically since I started to get involved with music. I would say it's both for good and for bad. The whole thing with streaming, where you basically rent your music instead of buying it, is something I really have a problem with personally relating to. I don't like it. I like to own my music, and it feels more fun to sell a physical thing also. Like a record that people can touch with a booklet and so on, or a vinyl. But it does have its advantages, especially for already established artists like me. Because, like mentioned earlier, I got the rights back for most of the Therion back catalog. And of course I can and I will re-release it physically, but it's a lot of work with that. But digitally, you just upload it to a service and you have access to, I don't know, is it 55 different streaming and download service places. They of course take a percentage, but basically you don't need a record label anymore for back catalog releases. You need a record label when you release something new because it needs to be promoted. But for a product that has already been established and you just want to continue to sell it, it's actually a dream situation, that you can just upload it and get a little paycheck every month. Okay, and then we have some individual questions left. And one guy asked, would you like to do some reunion concerts with Peter, Oscar and Eric? And the idea actually crossed my mind when we had our 30-year anniversary. But I think it's not a good idea for several reasons. One reason is that if we're gonna do a reunion with death metal, then it wouldn't make sense to have them to play stuff from Lepaka Cliffoth or Symphony Mathis. And Eric even only played on the first album of Darkness. It would make more sense than to make some sort of reunion with all the members from the death metal era and do death metal concerts. But then it would be a whole bunch of people involved, and also I'm not very keen on the idea of singing death metal. It's one thing if it would be one song or two songs at some special concert, but to do a full concert with death metal singing, no, that's what I want to do. I'm too old for that. I'll leave death metal for the youth. And we have another question here. Where in the world do you find the easiest inspiration for writing music? Is it a special country or place that you remember that had given you ideas and inspiration? In some rare cases, it has actually happened that I got inspiration from a special place. Most of the time, I just write music. It doesn't matter if I'm in the shower or if I'm taking out the garbage or if I'm in a wonderful place having vacation. Music can just come to me. But there are two occasions that I actually remember. One was Close Up the Streams on the Gothic Cabal album. This one I wrote on the US tour, and you can hear in the riffing that it is a little bit American sounding actually. It's not one of our best songs, and I'm not such a big fan of the American sound in general, to be honest, so maybe that's why. But at least the inspiration was hitting me there. And I got also inspiration last time we were in Mexico, in Oaxaca, in the south. We went there to see some ruins, and I got some inspiration from both lyrics and music there. which is very rare. I mean, I've visited so many cool places like New Grinch and Ireland and so on, and I never got musical inspiration from it. But in this specific instant, I did. Those are 10 questions, but let's do one bonus question, an 11th one. So we have a Cliffotic number. During the years that Therion has toured South America, what has been the biggest changes you have seen in the audience, organizers, accommodations, flight connections, among other aspects? Well, it has been a huge difference. When we started to play in Latin America, the first time was actually Mexico in 1993. Then things were completely primitive. I mean, we played in Toluca in a backyard, basically, where somebody had built a stage, totally underground. And when we played Argentina and Chile the first time, that was 95, it was also totally underground. And we were kicked out from our one-star hotel because the promoter didn't pay in Buenos Aires. So a couple of nice fans let us sleep on the floor there and made sure we had something to eat. So there it was very underground. And in Chile, in Santiago, the band were spat at. The audience would spit on the band. And that's something that came from the British punk scene. And the people who were into death metal back then, they were basically the same people as the punk people. So they were actually spitting on the bands. And the more they liked the band, the more they would spit. So they would comfort me later like, yeah, but you know, you should be happy that you're not as popular as Slayer. You should have seen how they looked like. So there was a small comfort. We were actually the third band ever to play there. International metal band. It was only Slayer and Sepultura that played there before us. And since Tom Araya is Chilean, we were the first international metal band without a Latin American connection to play there. And everything was completely rough. I mean, the backstage security guy was headbanging to the support act instead of taking care of the backstage security. So some weird guy was getting in backstage and took a pee in our shower and threatened us if he wouldn't get a part of our booze. So that was pretty primitive. But the guy who organized it, I think his name was Andre, was a really cool guy, and he took very well care of us. Otherwise, you know, we were staying at a lovely place, and there was this woman coming cleaning the place every morning, and she would kick us out of bed. She would speak in Spanish. We wouldn't understand a word, but she would basically take the blanket and like, hey, get out of bed, it's late, it's noon. And she would clean things up. There would be breakfast there, and she would put beer in the fridge. So a lot of good memories. Later, we changed our music style, and we were kind of pioneers touring with symphonic metal Therion, and going from this underground to 5-star hotels, playing arenas. We pulled 5,000 people in Quito in Ecuador, first time we played there. A lot of fans waiting at the airport and these things. So yeah, it really changed from very like primitive underground to like big rock star thing. And then things continued to change, because when we were making those early symphonic metal tours there, 2001, 2004, you know, we were extremely big there, and not so many other bands toured there. So there were a lot of people that were maybe not diehard Therion fans. Maybe they had a record, heard a few songs, but they would still show up at the concerts because, hey, there was a metal concert. But with time, other bands started to see that, oh, we can play Latin America and there's big money there. So it started to be a lot of bands playing there, and instead of being starved a metal concert, you got to a point where people couldn't afford to go and see all the concerts anymore. So the market got a bit saturated, and now it's more normal. You know, the places you play are a bit smaller, and it's still among the best audiences on the planet, but maybe people are not as crazy as they were back in the days. I mean, I'll give you an example. When we played El Salvador the first time, they broke the stage barrel and almost broke the whole stage. The whole stage would be moving like a ship in the storm, you know, because people would move the whole stage. And one guy climbed up in the light rig and stage dived down in the crowd. I don't know if I missed that type of thing. It's interesting to have experienced it, but now it's more balanced in Latin America, and it's more how it is when you go anywhere. You know, most people listen to music via Spotify. They wear the same clothes everywhere, and hotels look pretty much the same everywhere. So for good and for bad, you know, things have become more like how they are in Europe. Promoters have become way more professional also. You still have the occasional not good one, but you have that in Europe as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching, and maybe we'll do this again sometime. Stay metal.